Happy Friday, everyone.
Thank you for that.
Everybody have a good Friday. Everybody ready for the show?
Yeah.
Let's get over to the weather doctor, see what's going on with the weather today.
What's up, everybody? Check, 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, we're good to go. All right. But I know you guys heard me singing that song earlier, but yeah, I'm a big Prince fan. How many Prince fans do we have out there? All right. So, anyway, I just want to say, ready to forecast, please. If you haven't done so already, please put your cell phones on mute or off during the talk show, so that way it don't accidentally rain during the talk show. Anyway, I have some great events coming up, but as of right now, a forecast that's looking kind of blah, as most people would say. So, anyway, today it's gonna be. Y'all ready for this? The high of 46. The high of 46 and a low of 34, and it's going to be pretty much raining all day. The Weather Channel said 100%, but personally, I just, if they say 100%, I just say rain all day, basically. So anyway, tonight, like I said, it's going to be down to 34. With more rain likely throughout the night, and then it's going to continue into tomorrow. But here's the big thing, guys. Okay, listen closely. Tomorrow, there's going to be a chance of mixed precipitation, or what the weather people say, a mixed bag. Meaning that at times there could be rain, at times there could be rain or snow or sleet or freezing rain mixing in. And it just depends on where you're at. So, just because you don't get, rain and snow mixed, you might just get regular rain or maybe a few sleet pellets mixing in. But with that being said, tomorrow is going to be 38 degrees. Yeah, very cold. But most of the events are indoors, so thank God for that. Anyway, tomorrow's going to be 38 and a low of 31. And during the overnight hours tomorrow night, we might see a little bit of snow, but I don't think it's going to really stick or anything, because lately the ground's up and too warm, so. But however, I must remind you, the bridges and the overpasses might have a little bit of slick spots for Sunday church services. So be sure that you be careful, take it easy, allow yourself plenty of extra time. Don't be trying to cut other drivers off, because that's just not going to work. That's just, just saying, But anyway, with that being said, Sunday be the high 37 and the low 30 degrees. And, and then it's cloudy skies. But then the clouds stick around through all week next week. And the precipitation will be scattered. The precipitation will be scattered by Wednesday. And the highs will be in the lower 40s for most of the week. So, hey, I'll take the lower 40s versus 10 or 0 degrees or blizzard-like conditions like the Midwest has seen. So. And I want to say one more thing too before I go to the events to you guys, because I'm trying to make it short, but I just want to say, guys, be careful, it's winter time, but be careful if you happen to venture out on the ice. Make sure it's thick enough. Do not venture on the ice if you don't know how thick it is, because there is a case the other day where somebody had fell through the ice, so just be careful. I cannot stress that enough. But anyway, here are the events. Y'all ready for this? Yeah! Drum roll, please. All right. here's the events. The first one is, for those of you chili lovers, the 2020 Chili Cook-Off. And that's down at the Findlay Market on this Sunday, January 26th, from 10 in the morning to 4 p.m. So that's down at the Findlay Market. So that's going to be a great time. And it's going to be a great day for that too. It's going to be mighty cold. So, even though it's 5 degrees above freezing, it's still cold for me. So, anyway, the second event, okay, this is for you pet lovers out there. If you haven't gotten any pets yet, it's the Fur Gotten Dog Rescue Pet Adoption Event down at the PetSmart Newport. And that's tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Again, that's 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then that's down again at the Newport PetSmart. And the third one. Oh, and for those of you Lion King lovers out there, let me hear it. All right, seems like we have over 100 people in here that like the Lion King, huh? Anyway, it's going to be down at the Aronoff. It's going to be down at the Aronoff. Saturdays, Sundays, matinees at 2 o'clock. And then, you know, the Lion King's going to be at the Aronoff Saturdays and Sundays at 2 o'clock and it's going to be during matinees, so it'd be pretty cheap. So, anyway, it's going to be running through February the 2nd, so it's going to be a great one. I wish I could go see it myself, or hear it. Most people say, "Why did you say see it? You can't see it." Anyway, that's your 3 weekend events again, guys. Real quick, the Lion King down at the Aronoff, Saturday and Sundays through February 2nd. The Forgotten Dog Rescue Pet Adoption down at Newport PetSmart tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And once more, the 2020 Chili Cook-Off down at the Findlay Market on the 26th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Everybody have a great weekend, and see y'all next week. We love you guys, and stay tuned for the special guest in just a few minutes after the sports report.
Well, that's a good day to stay inside. Just kick it over to the sports reporter, Ronnie Marshall. Number 5, home base comes in at 2 p.m. Table is home base for cut at Italy. They were at Forget at 4 p.m. AKM at Green Bay at 9 p.m. AKM at White State at 9 p.m. Come up for our state based in India at noon. Our state at Northwestern at 6:30 p.m. Number 14, EK. Base in the build at 6 p.m. This Saturday, number 14, EK at number 18, Texas Tech at 6 p.m. Big Hats based at UM at 7 p.m. on the 7th That's for sports. Go back to Scott. Sounds like there's going to be a lot of sports on TV this weekend. So, everybody put your hands together for Lance McAlister.
Come on out, Lance.
Thank you.
I am fantastic. I got to tell you, it is an honor to be here and to see this setup and the work that is put into it and the job you guys do. I've watched it on YouTube. I've watched the interviews with the guests you've had in the past, from Tim McGee to John Popovich and Charlie Frank and others, and it is a real treat to be here. Thank you for having me.
Would you like to answer some questions for us today?
Lay them on me.
The first question is, what you do for a living?
That's an easy one. I have the best job in the world. I get to talk on the radio every night in the city I grew up in and talk about the Reds. Who likes the Reds? I get to talk about the Bengals. Any Bengal fans out here? So every night at 6 o'clock on the radio on 700 WLW, I get to host a show called Sports Talk, and my job is to talk for 3 hours, and I talk about the Reds and the Bengals and the Bearcats, the Kentucky Wildcats, and Xavier and FC Cincinnati. I interview coaches, and I talk with players, I talk with broadcasters, and the really cool part is people who are listening at home can pick up the phone and call into the show and talk with me about the Reds and the Bengals and all those teams. So I've always said I got the best job going.
How and why did you get started in radio?
I grew up in Cincinnati. I lived in Anderson Township, and I listened to the radio all the time. I listened to Marty and Joe, the Reds broadcasters, on radio. I listened to a show called Sports Talk that I'm now hosted by Bob Trumpy, legendary broadcaster. We call him the godfather of sports talk. And I listened every day, and the more I listened, the more I thought I want to do that someday. And I'll never forget, I also wanted to play for the Reds. I thought I was going to be good enough I was a big Reds fan, watched the Big Red Machine back in the 70s, and I thought, man, I'm going to play for the Reds someday and wear that uniform. And I got to high school, and I tried out for my baseball team, and the coach cut me from the team. I wasn't good enough to make the team, he cut me. But I'll never forget, and it's the classic, when one door closes, another opens. The coach said to me that day, if you're not going to play on the team, have you thought about broadcasting? And my high school had a radio station. And I started broadcasting in high school back in 1983 and was broadcasting our baseball and football and basketball games. And I have been doing broadcasting since I graduated from high school in 1984. And it's why I think I have the best job going. And to make it even better, and this is what I have the most appreciation for. I'm hosting a show that I grew up listening to. And when I grew up listening to it, I would call Bob Trumpy on the phone. I was a listener. I'd call him and talk sports. And there have been legendary people who have hosted that show, from Bob Trumpy to Chris Collinsworth to Andy Furman, who's behind the camera right now. Andy! How about giving up to Andy Furman behind the camera? And the fact that I get to do that every day now, when somebody like Bob Trumpy and Chris Collinsworth and Andy Furman did it, it means a great deal to me, and I try not to take that for granted and realize how happy and lucky I am. So again, I've got the best job going.
There you go.
Question 3. What was your first broadcast, and were you nervous?
Oh yes, I'm nervous right now. Let me go back to one of my first jobs. I did some TV work as well. At on the TV news at 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock. I started working in South Bend, Indiana, and I was the sports anchor. And we did the news, the sports, the weather. And I'll never forget my first broadcast. I had graduated from Butler University, and I'm 22 years old. And here I'm on TV for my first job, and I'm all excited. And I walk up to the set, and I sit down. And when you're on TV, the lights are so bright, you have to put on makeup so your face doesn't shine. Because the lights shine on your face and it reflects off your face, so you have to put powder on your face. Well, I never put powder on my face. So I'll never forget the first night. I'm ready to do the sports at 6 o'clock, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to talk baseball and football and Notre Dame football and basketball. And here, I said, all right, how do I put on this makeup? So I took the powder and just started putting the powder all over my face. Well, by the time I got out onto the set and it was time to be on TV, I looked like Casper the Ghost. I had so much powder on my face, and I'll never forget everybody at the station looking at me, the news person, the weather person, saying, "What have you done?" And I thought it was going to be the final time I was going to be on TV, but I didn't know. I had no experience putting on makeup, and I had put too much on, so I did the sports that night looking like Casper the Ghost, and somehow I survived that, and I'm still broadcasting this many years later.
Well, I was nervous when I first did this for the first time. Question 4, can you tell us about your background and where did you grow up?
Yes, I grew up in Anderson Township, and I always joke my claim to fame as a kid, my backyard where I lived in Anderson Township was connected to Marty Brenneman's backyard, the legendary voice of the Cincinnati Reds. So back in the 70s, 1975-76, when the Big Red Machine, the greatest team in baseball, was playing, I was 10 years old, and I used to play wiffle ball in my backyard, and I would hit wiffle balls into Marty Brenneman's backyard. And I'll never forget having to run into his backyard and grab the baseball and run back. And one day when I was 10, I had a record album, and it was the Reds' greatest hits in 1976. It was all the radio calls, the best Reds plays that year. And I walked over to Marty's front door, and I knocked on the door, and here I was, 10 years old, little Lance McAlister, and he opened the door, and I said, "Mr. Brenneman, would you sign my record album?" And he signed the back of it, and I still have that today. And I will never forget the fact as a kid I used to hit wiffle balls into Marty Brenneman's backyard. And I knew as a fan of the Reds I wanted to do something sports-wise, and I've been very lucky to be involved in sports ever since.
Question 5, do you have any family members who might be following in your footsteps?
First, I'm the luckiest man in the world. I'm married. My wife, Kelly, is a sweetheart. I don't know how she puts up with me. I'm very fortunate. She likes sports as well. The only downside, she's a 49ers fan. And if you grew up a Bengals fan, the 49ers have beaten the Bengals twice in Super Bowls. So we go round and round on that. But she's a big sports fan, and I have 2 kids. My son is named Casey. He is 19 years old. He is a sophomore at the University of Cincinnati. We named him Casey after Sean Casey, who used to play for the Cincinnati Reds. And my daughter is Peyton. She is 17 years old. She is a senior at Simon Kenton. She's, go Simon Kenton. She's deciding on her college. I think she's down at the University of Kentucky or the University of Louisville. And we named her Peyton after Peyton Manning. So as you can tell, sports are a big thing in our life. But I'm very blessed. I don't think they're going into broadcasting. I laughed at my son a while back. He had a project for school, and he had to do a podcast. And it was a 3-minute podcast with his classmate. And he looked at me one night and said, "Man, talking for 3 minutes, that's tough." And I said, what do you think I do every night? I talk for 3 hours. And he said, how do you do that? So I don't think he's going into broadcasting. I don't think she's going to go into broadcasting. But whatever they do, I'm very proud of them, and I know they're going to be very successful at it. I will do that. Thank you.
I hope she chooses University of Kentucky, I'm just saying.
I will let her know.
What is the hardest part of your job?
That's a good question. I love almost everything about my job. The only negative is people like to complain a lot. And I'm an optimistic person. I've always said when I go on the radio, if I'm not excited about what I'm talking about, why would anybody be excited to listen to me on the radio? And my job is sports. And it's fun. Sports are fun. I've always said I broadcast in the toy department of life. It's not serious. It's not life and death in most cases. It's sports. It's hitting a ball. It's shooting a basketball. It's winning games. And so I've always been optimistic and excited about what I'm talking about. And I always try to find the positive and the reason to be excited about the teams. There's a lot of people who would rather complain about their teams and be mad about their teams and call in and say, trade this guy, fire this guy, I don't like this team. So I'm kind of the counter to that, and it does kind of wear you down when people complain all the time about their teams. And I've always said if you're not optimistic about your team going into the season, if you're not excited about your team going into the season, why be a fan of the team? You should, it's not, it's supposed to be fun, and so I try to keep it fun every night, but there's a lot of negative vibes and negative conversation when it comes to sports, and that's kind of tough sometimes.
Question 7. What do you enjoy most about doing sports talk?
That is the easy part. Every day I wake up, my job is to think about what I'm going to talk about that night on the radio. And it's 3 hours, and I get to plan out talking about the Reds, talking about the Bengals, talking about college basketball or college football. And the fact that I grew up in the same town that I'm now talking about the teams, that means the world to me. And I think I've been on the radio here since 1997, so I've been on for 23 years. I think people who listen to me know that I care about the teams I'm talking about. I've worked in other places. I've worked in Chicago and I've worked in South Bend. I just didn't have a connection to those teams. I like talking about the Chicago Bulls and the Chicago Bears and Notre Dame football, but at the end of the day, it really didn't matter to me whether they won or lost. I think people know here, having grown up around these teams, they know my emotions are genuine. I have a connection to these teams, and it doesn't. I could work in other cities, but it would be a job. The fact I'm here in Cincinnati talking about the teams I grew up with makes it the best thing in the world any guy could do.
Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl?
That's a great question. It's going to be a fantastic matchup. The Kansas City Chiefs are a really dynamic team with probably the best player in football, Patrick Mahomes. He's an electric player. The 49ers have a really good defense and a really good running game. I just hope it's a fantastic game. If I had to pick a team today, I'd say Kansas City. They're so fast, and Patrick Mahomes is so good, but I think it's going to be a heck of a Super Bowl.
Have you ever had any problem from people with only of the opinions you have expressed?
Now, that's a good question, because part of my job, I have to give my opinion. I have to tell them what I think about the teams and the coaches and the managers and the owners. And sometimes they don't exactly like it. If a team's playing poorly, I'm going to say they're playing poorly. And if I think a coach made a poor decision in a game, I'm going to say that. It's part of my job. But I think in the end, if I'm doing my job the right way, if I'm doing enough preparation and getting ready for the show and doing background, I hope they know what I'm saying comes from a place of preparation and knowing what I'm talking about. I don't like to be the guy that flies off the handle and just says things to say things. And I think over 20 plus years, hopefully I've earned the respect of the people I'm talking about, where they say, man, he was tough on me. He was critical of what I did, but I hope they also say, but I know he's done his homework and he knows what he's talking about, so I understand where he's coming from. I've always said it's not a matter of if people agree with me or disagree with me. It's a matter of if they are engaged in listening to what I say, because I like the back and forth. I like them to tell me what they don't agree with, and that's, to me, is sports and what the back and forth of talking sports is all about. It's supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be great debate.
What was your best interview?
My favorite interview of all time is Pete Rose. And Pete Rose is somebody that I grew up playing baseball like. I ran to first base on a walk because of Pete Rose. I slid head first because of Pete Rose. And certainly there are many flaws to Pete Rose. But as a baseball player and as an interview, when I get him on the radio, his recall and memory of his career, I can ask him about a game that happened in 1976 in Philadelphia against a pitcher named Steve Carlton, and Pete Rose can tell me a story about what he did in that game. And I believe there's no greater storyteller about the game of baseball, no greater ambassador for the game of baseball than Pete Rose. And when you get Pete Rose on the show, you just kind of sit back. I just ask him a question, I sit back, and he rolls with baseball conversation and stories that it's unlike any other guest I've ever talked with, and I think he's the best baseball storyteller that there's ever been in the game.
Question 10. What is your take on the Astros cheating in the World Series?
Yeah, it's tough. And for those who don't know the story, the Houston Astros were the best team in baseball in 2017. They won the World Series, but it has been revealed that they cheated to win the World Series. They were getting inside information on the pitches that were coming. The easiest way to explain it is the Astros knew if the pitcher was going to throw a fastball, or if he was going to throw a curveball, or if he was going to throw a changeup. And the funny thing is, the Astros were telling their hitters what was coming by banging on a trash can. And as silly as that sounds, they were watching on a video monitor and they were able to figure out the signs. If you're a baseball fan, you know the third base coach or the catcher will put down signs of what pitch is coming or what they should do at the plate. And the Astros figured out what was happening. And they would bang the trash can maybe once if it was going to be a fastball, or maybe twice for a curveball, or maybe not bang it at all. So any of the hitters coming up to the plate, and hitting a baseball is the toughest thing to do in the world. But the Astros were being told, hey, this next pitch is going to be a fastball, get ready. And because of that, the Astros were very successful at baseball that year. They won the World Series. And now that we have learned how they did it, they're in a lot of trouble. They fired the manager, they fired the general manager, and it is a big controversy in Major League Baseball, and I don't think we're done hearing about it. I think it's going to be a story that goes on for a while.
Question 11. Can you give us a preview on the Red season?
I am really fired up about the Reds season. It's been tough in recent years. They haven't won a lot of games. But I am really fired up with what they've done this offseason. They brought in some new players, some pretty good players. A player named Mike Moustakas, who's going to play second base. They brought in an outfielder who played in Japan. I can't wait till opening day at the end of March. And to me, in this city, Reds baseball from April to September, when the Reds are winning, and the way it makes people feel in this city. Who raise your hand if you like it when the Reds are winning. I mean, it is fun in this city when the Reds are playing winning baseball, and it makes my job a whole lot easier to talk about a winning baseball team, so I can't wait.
Question 12. Can you tell us about your brief experiences here at Redwood?
I got to tell you, I didn't know what to expect coming in when Andy Furman reached out to me and said, would you like to be a guest of the show? I said, sure. Now, I didn't know what I was getting myself into when I said sure, but I have watched this show on YouTube. I've watched the job everybody's done and how just kind of fun the show is and how welcoming everybody is. And I've seen the various interviews, as I mentioned, with Mo Egger and John Popovich and the former Bengal Tim McGee, who I think was with you guys last week. And the setup and the care and the attention And just the time put into this show and walking through the facility, it blew me away. I'm honored to be here. And man, keep up the good work and what's going on and the effort everybody's been putting in. Because this is an amazing setup. It really is.
We want to thank Lance McAlister for being here today. We want to thank Weather Joker for the weather and Ryan Wilson. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.